I've got to write this down now. I've got to put more into my next crazy article about the theft of these documents by Donald Trump.
Yeah.
Oh, classic.
You did an analysis of what you think Trump took. Talk to us about that for a second.
Yeah, about a week ago on my Substack, I posted a little micro rant about stealing documents and how we need to reframe what we're saying about this classified information case.
Mm-hmm.
You need to stop calling it removal of classified documents. You have to call it the theft of secrets.
Thank you.
And so what I did was I went over every one of the documents they have. Now, of course, they don't show you the documents, but the classification markings and the dates that they were related to are fascinating. In fact, there's a much detailed study in the Lawfare blog. But what I did was I went over the types of documents and what they stole. So let me give you a quick overview. 31 documents he's being charged for. There are several hundred documents that he took, but 31 he's being charged for. 21 of those documents were top secret. Okay, 23 of those documents were not releasable to foreign governments, no foreign, right? Of those, let me see. Oh, secret. How many of those were just plain old secret? 10 of them were just plain old secret. But here's the categories. My blog is called Special Intelligence,
yes. Yeah.
Right? At malcolmnance.substack.com. A little plug for me. But 6 of those documents were marked special intelligence. Special intelligence means cryptologic secrets and sources from the National Security Agency, some of our greatest secrets. 6 of those documents related to that. 5 of them were satellite imagery of actual things that our spy satellites were looking at. 8 of them were so secret and so compartmented, they wouldn't even reveal the classification subcompact markings. There's 8 documents in there that have their own special category that no one's going to find out about. 25 of them, I said 23 of them were not releasable to our enemies. 1 of them was related to Americans' nuclear weapons. 13 of those were supposed to be originated control, which means the president cannot release them without that agency's express approval. And then 2 of them were actually related to the human control system, which is naming our spies.
Yeah.
So this it's way more serious.
Yeah. Well, I've quoted you all week that unserious people are talking about the politics of this. Serious people are talking about national security. And that's exactly what we should be hammering. You're right. Malcolm, it's floated around in the, legal verse about, is he going to be able to cut a deal because some of this stuff is so classified that you can't put it in a court setting? I mean, I fail to see how the crime being even more serious, as you allude to, would help you get away with it. I mean, can you talk about that a little bit, about this, dealing with classified material?
Sure. And I'm sure Glenn Kirshner has something to say about this in the courtroom. Yes, you can actually clear all of the jurors. You can actually clear the prosecutors and the defense. And when we're dealing with classified information, go to a circumstance where that classified information is secure. The jury room would be converted into a SCIF, a sensitive compartmented information facility. We have prosecuted many spies. Can I point out that Reality Winner, a former Air Force airman who stole 1 document that was only classified secret, got 5 years in prison. This is 31 documents of the highest top secrets of the United States. And compartmentation, Reality Winner couldn't ever be cleared for.
Yeah.
So, we try this. And I think that it should be public. I think the American people should watch this trial, and then, of course, you can black out the screens when it comes to sensitive information.
I didn't get your reaction yet to the Washington Post reporting, which is, of course, infuriating. But, you always talked about the counterintelligence investigation of Trump. It was starting back with Russia. I mean, this is what's, we have, those of us that are patriots and are hopeful, we're like, they must be working on these things, and then in some cases we find, oh no, they weren't. What happened? I mean, is there a counterintelligence investigation of everything Trump has done, or what? I mean, I don't understand how our national security works in this regard.
Well, we had actually learned. I mean, you have to go right back to the beginning of this. The people who took part in the Crossfire Hurricane investigation, which was a sensitive investigation of a president of the United States, started with the head of FBI spy hunters. When you say counterintelligence, think spy hunter. All right? That's the actual job. It was Peter Strzok, the guy that was the first person Trump went after, because people in the FBI identified the guy who could most put Trump at risk. And that's when they found that Peter Strzok had a relationship with a Department of Justice lawyer named Lisa Page, and then Trump went after him as Peter Strzok and his lovers. That was deliberate to get rid of the one guy that could talk to Russia legitimately. Then, of course, that neutralized the FBI's capacity to want to go after him. This is insane. The Mueller report specifically did not do counterintelligence. It specifically did not investigate his ties to Moscow other in the most cursory way, which he had in the first two paragraphs, that he was tied to Russia and benefited from Russia. So for the FBI now, for us to find out that they deliberately did not investigate this because they were worried about the president and what it would look like, letting him off the hook. You go after Hunter Biden on nothing, and you literally have a man who may, based on these documents, have either been working for Russia's interest or working to be paid or working to find some benefit that will financially benefit him from Russia or Saudi Arabia, or who knows.
Yeah. I mean, will we ever find that? Will we ever, I mean, that's the part of this you just wonder, are those shoes going to drop? Are we going to find out what he did with this intelligence?
Well, I think that, and this is where we have to be a little careful. The problem with spy hunters, these counterintelligence guys, is that they're really focused on getting the pathway of the spies that they're looking at, or people who may be working for them. They want to take down networks, not individuals. If you'd like to see a good example of that, watch the Brad Pitt movie Allied, right? It was about taking down networks of spies. But in this particular circumstance, they don't seem particularly interested in the person who may have committed the crime in America. They're more interested in where that information have gone. But the point is, you can't separate A and B. Half that information I saw in my analysis was about Iran. It would only benefit two countries. One, we'd probably give it to Israel anyway. But the Saudis, I don't know, maybe they'll buy the entire PGA golf franchise and drop $2 billion into your wallet. These are the shoes that have yet to fall. And I think we get to that. I think Jack Smith is not the guy to be messed with regards to counterintelligence.
Yep, I agree. Speaking of fighting misinformation on the Twitters, someone tweeted, "What's happening in Ukraine is so immoral. The Ukrainian army is being destroyed, and the army has not even reached the Russian lines. Folks, this war did not have to happen. This war was provoked and then extended by the incompetence running U.S. policy." You said this is the most ridiculously uninformed man on the planet, next to Trump, MTG, and Putin. Please unscrew him with some facts. I'll do it for you. Russia is losing badly. First of all, there's so many tentacles. You've been talking about Trump, Russia. We've been talking about Bobby Kennedy Jr., the far-right Moms for Liberty just invited him to speak. I had Travis pull this. There was many stories. This one happens to be from The Hill. Trump's victory margin smaller than total Jill Stein votes in key swing states. I mean, oh my God, Malcolm, please tell me everything you wrote about in your book that's in the Mueller report, that's in the Senate Intelligence report, we're not going to do again. It's because we have now on the left some of these these Putin apologists, anti-vaxxers that are, the ones coalescing around, I guess, the Bobby Kennedys.
Usually I start plugging Plot to Hack America and Plot to Destroy Democracy.
Yeah.
They outlined the first 4 years of this. The book that I actually did the worst is a book called The Plot to Betray America.
Yeah.
I reread it last week. My own book. It's
Came out
about
before the 2016 election, people.
before the 2016 election. It's literally about how his entire internal team was bought by the Russians and the Saudis.
Yeah.
And now I'm starting to think maybe I plugged the wrong book at first. The Plot to Betray America is exactly what we're going through now. Now we're seeing, and I said this many times, there is a bridge we cannot see, but we know people crossed it. It's a question of finding where the bridge is located, what it's made of, and how it materializes. And so now, as you know, we have these people like the guy who you quoted on Twitter who's talking about Ukraine. That guy was the head of the Green Party, the presidential or vice presidential nominee under Jill Stein.
Yeah.
We have to understand the Russians aren't doing anything anymore. They have handed it off to their chaos agents in the United States. Anyone that even thinks about voting for anyone other than the Democratic Party, you're voting for Russia, Trump, the fall of Ukraine, and the end of democracy in this world. I get so worked up about
Well, I mean, this is just, and again, this is why I pulled cold, hard numbers, Malcolm, because as you wrote, if we've said over and over again, Paul Manafort shared polling data in these 3 states with the Russians that this is the Electoral College, that Hillary Clinton lost by 75,000 votes. The absolute Russian operation, as you wrote and others wrote, was micro-targeted for Bernie voters to either stay home, vote for Jill Stein, or vote for Trump. I mean, NPR says 10% of Bernie voters voted for Trump. Washington Post says 12% of Bernie voters voted for Trump. I mean, but you add to that the Jill Stein votes. The Russian operation worked exactly as it was designed, didn't it?
Absolutely. And again, they have, I find it hard to keep saying, well, it's the Russians, well, it's the Trump guys, well, it's the Bernie Green voters, whatever you want. Now I'm just going to start categorizing the entire class as enemies of democracy. And those Bernie voters are no longer Bernie voters. They went over and became hard Trump voters. We always have this joke about libertarians. Libertarians are just, marijuana smoking Republicans. So many of those people thought Jill Stein, Bernie Sanders, now people who, are in that league backing Trump are now also the same people who back Moscow over Ukraine by saying, we want peace and no war, just give Russia everything. Or who are this rabid, far crazy left, come around from the right liberals who were anti-vaxxers who love Gwyneth Paltrow and, yoga, but hate having their children get, vaccine for meningitis or not just COVID, the flu or smallpox or other diseases which will kill their children. We have an entire class of enemies of democracy.
Sorry, you're making a very good point. I also need to stop my dog from chewing on the wires that might take us off the air, so I threw a giant white toy at him. Okay. Just in case you're wondering, I'm still paying attention to you. Yeah, I mean, it is like a recurring nightmare that I'm like, we're not going to do this again in 2024, are we? This other headline, Moms for Liberty has been infiltrated by hardcore right-wing groups. Far-right Moms for Liberty promotes RFK Jr. as guest speaker. I'm like, oh my God. Acid flashback.
Moms for Liberty was created by Steve Bannon.
Thank you.
And Roger Stone. Robert F. Kennedy was recruited by Steve Bannon and Roger Stone. These people, stop referring to them as Democrats. Stop referring to them as independents. Start referring to them as Republican chaos agents. I keep talking about meta-narrative framing. You, the listener, you have to stop using the phrases they want you to use and start calling them what they are. Enemies of democracy, right? And right-wing chaos agents.
Yeah. And also, I was saying Bill Barr can shut his big yap about, yes, he's saying the right things about J6 and about classified documents. But, he went in his defense went on to say, oh, well, Trump was a victim of a witch hunt in Trump Russia, which is, he knows I've said this before, Malcolm. He knows that Donald Trump is just as big a traitor to this country and an obstructor of justice and a criminal as he did back during Trump Russia that he covered up for. It's exactly the same story again in classified documents, isn't it?
God, do we really have to listen to that Fred Flintstone looking? This man corrupted the office of the Attorney General in ways that no one under Nixon did. He should have gone to prison.
Yeah.
This guy got me pulled off air for 3 weeks just on a verbal to MSNBC. And then we found out every word I had written for 4 years was true. That shows you the power of a person that will stand up, look you in the eye, and lie. The only reason that Bill Barr is saying this is because there are certain country clubs in Florida that he wants to keep going to that are owned by DeSantis's crew. That's it.
Yeah. All right. Malcolm, read everything Malcolm's ever read, and we've linked to it at StephanieMiller.com. Love you, Malcolm. See you next week.
Have you all. See
there
you
he goes.
Bye.
51 minutes after the hour. This portion of the show brought to you by Mike. If only somebody knew a little something about stuff that goes on at Mar-a-Lago. Yay, it's ice cream for breakfast again. It's Noel Castler.
Yay, Noel.
Comedian extraordinaire, Twitter rock star. Hi, Noel. Good morning.
Hey, Stephanie. Great to see you. Thanks for having me.
Good to see you. You said on Twitter, I could wipe my ass with classified documents under a bathroom chandelier. I wouldn't lose any